Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, you can mute yourself, but every now and then come in. So under sound, at a certain point in the script, it says dynamo hum. Now, dynamo hum is an important part of the Uncle Meat play presented in the 1969 album called Uncle Meat in the booklet. Dynamo hum. And he also did a song called Dynamo Hum. So he's got Dynamo Hum there in 1964. He doesn't say anything about it, just that there is environmental effects around Billy's, where Billy keeps his rocket, his launch room. It has a Dynamo Hum sound. See, so as you build up an awareness of all these different aspects and images in Frank's work, you see that his album covers were showing you a fragment of the big album, of the whole thing, of the whole environment. And so you'll see Dynamo Hum said here, and then it'll show up later as another use. But it is part of the whole. You're looking at a huge, like an elephant, and one album will give you the leg, another album will give you the neck, another album will give you the trunk, another album will give you the ears, and once you know all the stuff, you see that his album titles are all the aspects of the same scene where a guy has a rocket and he's going to compete with the government and get to the moon first. This old janitor is determined to make his own rocket and get to the moon. Now, that's a pretty lofty ambition, right?
Yes.
But maybe he's working on that.
Zappa is, yeah. Well, we're going to get to that. So I'll say that. There's more to say, but I want to say a few more samples and then get to the next big statement. So you know that this guy's pissed off, and he wants to get to the moon and claim it for himself. Fuck the government. And in this movie, it says rock and roll fills the hollow room. The hollow room. Billy listens for a moment and resumes his deodorizing. So you have this rock and roll environment. The transistor radio environment is always being pointed out in this situation. The ground of transistor radio to whatever the figure activities are as figure. So Beefheart says, yes, kids, you're right again. Billy has been saving Cecil for the final test. Now what he's going to do is he's going to stuff Cecil in the rocket and send them to the moon. But first he has to test the Van Allen belt. He has to see if a human can survive the Van Allen belt. He said Cecil, he has nothing to do but care for these horses, and he tries to offer horse rides to kids, but there's nobody in the area, so he doesn't get any business, having horse rides. So every now and then he loses a horse, and he doesn't know what happened. Well, it turns out Billy stole the horse, put it in his rocket ship, set it up there, and see if he died. And two horses did die going through the Van Allen radiation belt. So it didn't look too good for humans. And it says 3 times Billy launched his proud ship, and 3 times it returned with a dead pony in it. It seems they always perish going through the Van Allen radiation belt. Billy has learned all he can from the ponies. A stage has been reached now where a pony just won't do. Billy needs a human. And so Beefheart says, yes, kids, you're right again. Billy has been saving Cecil for the final test. Cecil is still in the dark about the whole thing, of course. After all, he's got his mind on the business, and the business of his own non-horse ride business, and the terrible loneliness of his life in Happy Valley. So in Gravity's Rainbow, the punchline is this Nazi rocket manager is putting a little kid in, I think a sexually abused kid first, into a rocket and testing it. So Pynchon, who becomes a big fan of Zappa, what he develops in a 1973 novel, Zappa lays out 10 years before. The idea of stuffing somebody without their approval in a rocket. So I don't think Pynchon would know about Frank's screenplay. It didn't get out much. So, but it's just an interesting parallel. So it's almost like what is this new environment leads to the horrible scenario of what would be the worst thing is if they stuffed you, Bert, in the rocket ship and sent you out there, and you weren't sure you'd get back. That would be a nightmare for kids, right? If you put into one of these NASA spaceships without your approval. And it says, kids, you realize it's been 10 years since Cecil has seen or talked to anyone except Billy. 10 years of isolation. Do you have any idea what that can do to a man? it's almost a satire of Frank. He's not really isolated, but he is spending a lot of time by himself at the studio. But Billy Sweeney fits more of Frank's project. Okay, so moving along to the next. So Larry shows up. You'll hear on Shake Your Booty some of the musicians talking. It just is a little soundbite between songs, and they say something like, "Yeah, it's been completely different ever since Larry left," or "We don't know what happened to Larry. We don't know if he's having any fun." So there's this comment on Larry in 1979. You go back 15 years. Turns out Larry is a loser who shows up and is obsessed with pony rides because his father owns a ranch, works with horses, but won't let Larry have rides on them because I think the reason was that Larry would get dirty and track horse manure into the home. So the father didn't tolerate Larry being near the ponies, even though it was his father's business. So Larry is frustrated. He wants to have a pony ride, so he finds out Cecil's doing it in Happy Valley, so he shows up. Well, quickly, Cecil doesn't know this, but Billy decides to put Larry in the rocket ship, not Cecil. He's a perfect guy. So you have this horrible murder scene going along in this silly environment where this guy is trying to create. So he's kind of showing the sacrifices science makes, the cruelty that science does that's not talked about, right, in doing their experiments, or some scientists. So, but Larry says, you wouldn't believe it, but I hate my father, and that's why I ran away. In a way, Larry is partly Frank, because Frank has, as it comes out in his brother's book, has real tension between Frank and his father. They really struggle to remain, a family. They're really bugged by each other. So this thing about hating my father, and that's why I ran away, gets Larry in trouble. So it could be an aspect of Frank in that character. So another point is his sound. Filtered music from transistor radio. I don't know why it says filtered. Maybe it just means music comes from the transistor radio. But there's the hidden ground of the radio again, or transistor radio. And whipping along here, looking for the next ticked-off point. If you have anything to say, Bert, you can speak. Anything that comes to mind.
Well, I was thinking how he had to be a rock star because rock is tactile. The word rock and roll, meaning engaging sex, and this is like the new type of homily, the new type of coitus. And in the tetrad, McLuhan is doing at the end of the Laws of Media, he says the rock star is like a person one wears, something like that. So maybe
you wear them as clothing, you mean?
Yeah, he says the rock sound bubble is not for listening to, but for wearing and participating in. Right,
that's the. I thought you meant that we wear the rock star. Yeah, we wear the rock music. He's in the Tony Schwartz recordings. He says that. He says it's like foam rubber. The music presses up against you, and you respond to it like as if you're a big sponge pressing against, massaging your skin. Yeah, we put yourself in a space bubble.
He also talks about the acoustic environment being a type of clothes that surrounds you.
Yes. Well, radio, he said radio provided a privacy bubble for the kids at home. In their suburban homes, they'd want privacy, and they put on the radio, and that would shut out the rest of the home's sounds, and they do their homework with the radio on if they did the homework. And it was a privacy bubble that radio created after it was superseded by television and computers and satellite. Like, it wasn't a privacy bubble really when it was the hidden ground in the 20s and 30s. It was a tribal ESP experience of simultaneity. But when it got displaced by the new preference for TV, then the teenager and the rock and roll industry hijacked it for the space bubble, for the private identity, post-littered private identity of an acoustic space bubble, right? Your own little private space. So that's a good point to bring up. So
in a way, as McLuhan said, all medias are amplifying one of our senses, and the PA system, he puts in this tetrad the inflated persona for everyone to wear. So
inflated persona? What's persona?
Like an individual. Persona.
Oh, right.
Inflated persona.
Oh, that means that you're the content of the radio. So you get on, you're Bob Hope, and you get on the radio, Orson Welles, and you inflate yourself while putting on the whole world. Is that what it says? You inflate the persona?
Well, I understand it like, for example, we are all wearing Bob when we listen to Bob, or we wear Zappa when we listen to Zappa. It's like we fuse with the amplified
You put
persona.
on the artist. You put on the medium. You wear the medium, and you're the content. Your experience that you bring to it is the content, but you're wearing the artist or the poem or the book or the radio as an environment, as clothing. But what is it? What did he say after persona? You inflate the persona. What did he say?
For everyone to wear.
Yes. The electric world allows you, this wearing aspect is revealed under electric conditions. Nobody thought of wearing books, but the fact that everybody is inside the electric environment, it suddenly occurs to people, oh, geez, we're wearing this thing, sharing the same space. Then you project that back onto the history media. Oh, people wore the alphabet, and they wore the book, and they wore speech. But they didn't know that until they had a massive discarnate wearing session with radio environment. So it changed the perception of the past.
And that perception came after the television came. Is that what you're saying, Bob? That wearing.
Once radio and TV, electric simultaneous environments, beginning with radio, came in, it made people, some people, maybe artists, notice that they're kind of wearing the whole population. It was like clothing. Then they said, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. People were wearing books, 200 years ago. People were wearing manuscripts. People were wearing speech. They go back through media, through the epiphany that radio gave them.
Yes, and I find this idea very interesting, how we get addressed with the things we're engaging, like Zappa music, or his ideas is part of another type of clothing you're putting on, these patterns, these ideas in your other bodies. It's how you dress the other bodies, not the physical, but the others.
The new organs.
We're talking
you're
about.
Dressing. Yeah. You're addressing new extended ears, new extended mouths. In War and Peace in the Gold Village, McLuhan talks about fashion and calls it the Boer War. And it's spelled B-O-E-R. It's a pun on the war in South Africa, at the end of the 19th century. The colonialists, wiping out the natives, which Pynchon uses in his novels, especially in Gravity's Rainbow, that scenario. The clash between the pre-literate tribal people and the literate European countries. But fashion, if you're not into fashion, it's a Boer war. It's boring. So it says Cecil and Larry are bouncing with joy that they think that they're going to. Billy convinces Larry that this rocket ship is a new kind of pony. And the pony ride he's going to get is by getting inside this fucking weird thing that's going to move. So Cecil and Larry are bouncing with joy at the fact that Larry's going to get his pony ride. We can see Billy re-entering the lab through a secret door. He is wiping his hands on his coveralls and smiling. Now, are coveralls that kind of farmer bib and shoulder straps? You know what I mean? All right?
Yes.
They're called coveralls. Yes. Well, Frank has a picture of himself with coveralls on the 1969 album Uncle Meat in the booklet. So you're saying, why did he present himself as a farmer? Well, he's presenting himself as Billy Sweeney, as a metaphor, which no one would know because they didn't have the transcript of the play. The play had been written 5 years before, but I just noticed that. He was wiping his hands on his coveralls and smiling. Okay. So moving along quickly to the next ticked-off part. The rocket ship is made of cardboard. Now, not only is it a preposterous project to beat the government to go to the moon, but you're going to do it by building a rocket ship out of cardboard? You know? We're basically we're looking at an apparently retarded person with a fantasy project. And, you know, McLuhan said television brought in people as content started fantasizing. So here's this guy fantasizing under the TV situation. And Billy is explaining to Larry and Cecil, what's he saying? He says, the world has no conception of my discovery. My children, this sleek space, or rather this he started to say spaceship, and he stops himself. This sleek space, this spirited steed, horse, right? This spirited steed is not made out of metal, nor is it made out of two bigger ponies. It only looks like metal because of the rivets I painted on it. And Cecil says, not metal? And Billy says, in the manner of a TV pitchman, no, cardboard. It's light, easy to work with. Metal and bigger ponies are definitely harder to manage. I simply take some old boxes, staple them together, and impregnate them with this liquid, giving to the material an unbelievable strength and resistance to adverse environmental conditions. That's ionic. That's what we do. We impregnate with our new iCell into certain things. So here's Frank picking up on an ionic invention. Wouldn't you be? You guys were surprised if you saw our cold fusion machine, and you saw a look on the surface that was made out of fucking crude cardboard? You go, what the fuck? But so this is Billy doing Bob, 50 years before, saying that we impregnated with this cardboard, with this liquid, giving to the material an unbelievable strength and resistance to adverse environmental conditions. Now, somebody might say, well, science has done that since then, right? They probably have all kinds of stuff they inject into other stuff to make them stronger. Yeah, but it can be applied to us, too. And that's probably more applicable. So this cheap rocket, and he fools Cecil and Larry to be enthusiastic about it. And this script is made up of 107 pages, and we're at page 41 already, so it's pretty neat. So we're going on pretty fast if you're bored. In the instructions on the side, it says, this develops into what is this? He's talking about a youth band plowing through a crowd. What is this? Along the last 10 pages, what's happened is they focus on a politician, Senator Gurry, who is responsible for getting the American spaceship on the moon. And he's got an astronaut called Johnny Smith. And Johnny Smith is the all-American athlete kind of guy. He's described in the cast as a corn-fed astronaut, Johnny Smith. And Senator Gurney works for the government. You hear about Senator Gurney in Absolutely Free in 1967. Gurney is the name of the attorney who straps on the 13-year-old chocolate syrup, smothers her in chocolate syrup. I think his name is Gurney. I know the name Gurney, the attorney Gurney shows up. So the name Gurney was already happening in 1964. So Gurney is organizing this official moon launch. So there's a big celebration as they get ready to launch it, and it says there's a band continuing to march and play through a crowd. They're knocking down the crowd, mowing the crowd over, but they don't even care, and they just keep continuing marching and playing. The people with signs start whacking, signs supporting the launch, start whacking at the band for stepping on their feet. In retaliation, the youthful musicians play louder and empty their spit valves on the enemy's shoes. This develops into a minor riot as the crowd, still cheering, proceeds to beat the youngsters about the head and shoulders, rendering all of them unconscious except the guitar player, who, swinging his instrument like a machete, beats a path to safety. Now, it's interesting. The guitar player survives. That's a metaphor for Frank using the guitar to beat off the stupid crowd. He can use the latest technology to become a really good guitar player. Everybody else using obsolete tools dies, but he gets to safety. So it's interesting how he singles out the the guitar player, is surviving the riot. But this huge riot breaks out.
The one who gets the new frequency, the guitar player, is survivor.
Did you say virus?
No.
Fire?
The survivor.
Survivor, right.
Survivor.
So you have so Billy and Larry and Cecil. So Larry goes out there and survives the radiation belt and comes back, and they're all happy. Shit, Larry survived it. So now they're going to make the official launch, and this time it's going to be Billy, Cecil, and Larry, because Billy now thinks, okay, we can get through the Van Allen belt. We sacrificed Larry; he survived it, so we can do it. So Billy launches himself, and they head for the moon. And Senator Gurney is having big celebrations to launch their thing almost like the same day. And it says the minutes tick by as the final stages are reached in the countdown. A mere 3 hours now till Johnny Smith makes history in his sleek modern vessel, which I understand, this is a newscaster saying this, which I understand is called, and so appropriately, the Spirit of Cape Smedley. So they're at Cape Smedley, that's Cape Canaveral in reality, but Cape Smedley. And I think the Spirit of something was the name of Lindbergh's plane when he flew across the Atlantic Ocean in 1927 or so. So I think it's, or maybe it's a reference to the name of the plane, the Wright brothers, when they created flight in 1904 or so. The Spirit of something might have been on their plane. So it's a historical reference. Actually, by the clock, it is 2 hours and 15 minutes till the lift up. But the tension is getting to be, wait, we've just been handed a special bulletin. And they don't give it to you right away. It's back to Larry and Cecil. Billy is sitting at the controls of the rocket ship, and Cecil and Larry have to stand during the whole trip holding on like subway straps, holding on little straps, okay, bouncing about. So Billy is keeping an aristocratic distance between him and his assistants. Then Larry is saying, they're talking about what happened, what they go through. Because, when they go to the moon, they start to distort. Larry and Cecil become confident, and Billy becomes a little kid. So they're distorted when they go through the Van Allen belt, which is pretty interesting. Where did Zappa get that idea from? Is that known physics, that's what happens? I don't know.
Yes, and actually some of the conspiracy theorists say that's impossible to go through this radiation.
Right. You can't do a moon landing. It's impossible. That's what they say, right? So it happened in Nevada.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what the Evergreens was? It said it. What happened is they did go to the moon, but the footage that people saw on TV was shot from Nevada someplace. So the TV show was not the actual moon, but the guys were on the moon, and they didn't want to take a chance of broadcasting some unforeseen disaster, so they wouldn't let the people see what the astronauts were actually experiencing. They couldn't take that risk. So they faked the content. So you see, so people who notice this and they've written books on it, look, the thing's got shadows. They can tell it's a fake set. They figure out and kind of prove it. Well, it doesn't mean they didn't go to the moon. It's just that they didn't show us what they did in going to the moon. So that's a pretty neat take.
They
clear up
say
that bullshit.
Yeah.
Kubrick made that shootings.
Who?
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, Kubrick. That's right. Yeah. They say Stanley Kubrick did it. Right. So Larry's saying, talking about the experience. Let me see. What did they? I think they've landed. Let me just check. Yes, so they've landed, and they're reporting what they went through. And Larry says, well, I got this funny tingling in the back of my neck all of a sudden, and then bloop. I saw a whole bunch of colors blinking on and off. I guess it was just on a little daydream or something. It's like the ending of Kubrick's 2001 where the guy goes into this weird psychedelic trip, at the end of the movie. Well, Zappa anticipated this. He's saying Larry went through a bunch of, psychic hallucinations, a whole bunch of colors blinking on and off. And he said, I guess I was just on a little daydream or something. So isn't that neat?
Yeah.
Yes, and he calls his daughter Moon Unit.
Moon Unit. I'm going to explain that. I'm going to explain that in a minute. That's the next aspect of the big picture. So, as a result of where was that?
But I see this cardboard rocket. He was sort of seeing the illusion and
of the actual space race.
Yes, and also the hologram on Hollywood. Everything is glamour. Glamour is the illusion of elegance, but everything is illusion. Everything is fake. Everything is a prop.
Everything is cheapness. So the newscaster says, and Senator Gurney regrets to inform the public of this cancellation. They've canceled the rocket launch due to the presence in the atmosphere above Cape Smedley of some sort of alien rocket vehicle. So they're saying something was seen, and then he says, I repeat, due to this critical condition, the planned lunar landing mission has been temporarily postponed. So Senator Gurney is totally pissed off that something has gone out there and forced them to cancel, and they're going to try to figure out what the hell was that. So the race to the moon is on, and Billy has got the first jump. Let's see. Okay. Billy says, who is he saying this to? So Billy's saying to Cecil and Larry, we are about to embark on a perilous mission to outer space. Our destiny lies ahead. We shall conquer the moon. In the name of decency and all that is clean and good, in the name of Happy Valley, land of my youth, and all that it has stood for in the past, its inherent rural cleanliness and strength of spirit, the true spirit of our great land. For this we risk our lives now, as did our forefathers at Bunker Hill and Anzio and Mount Suribaki, all those places. For all this, we now depart for the moon. So I forgot to say that was his speech before they got in there and took off for the moon. So he's going to claim it for him in his neighborhood. Okay, so moving along now, looking for the next TikTok.
I was thinking how this meme of the new frontier going further is also the thing with the media. We were always trying to expand, to go further, and then with the visual bias, we thought it was going to the moon or going to space, but the real expansion was to go to the non-physical, reconnect something.
And the first phase of that was the electronic retrieval. And so the electronic retrieval and wiping out of the guff, we're already traveling by TV before we go to the moon. And that's a key point McLuhan uses to make fun of what's going on. Everybody's living in the rearview mirror, and they're doing an old 19th century replay with the rockets and ignoring the collective.
With Bonanza, we think it's going to conquer new territory in the desert.
Yeah,
right.
It's still going on.
So, yeah, and the newscaster says, and they're talking about the launch of the Johnny Smith, the regular launch. And there he goes, folks, up through the troposphere, up through the stratosphere, up through the ionosphere, up, up, up. What a man, what a ship. I remember Ion on one of the rewrites laid out the 7 spheres, the troposphere, the stratosphere, and the ionosphere. But there's the ionosphere right there. I mean, that's technically a scientific place, but I project my own world into that word.
No, that's a sign. That's a sign.
That's right, yes. You could say the troposphere was the book. Yeah, the troposphere is the electric age, the stratosphere is the android meme, and the ionosphere is the hexatic world we're into right now with the iCell. The troposphere is the electronic, analog electric environment, stratosphere is the digital environment, and the ionosphere is Dobbstown. Okay. We're on page 62, moving along. He has as one of the sound effects, suitable electronic lunar ballet music. Suitable electronic lunar ballet. All right. And all this time, while Johnny Smith is going towards the moon, he's reminiscing about his own life, his youth. It's like he's seeing his life flash before him. He talks about, me and my three buddies took off about 7 a.m. in a little 39 Studebaker. Frank is always talking about this 39. He has a Chevy, I think, sometimes. Now a Studebaker. It's always 1939 for some reason. He refers to that year in the car culture. I think I jumped ahead at one point where Johnny's talking about.
It's fun how Frank knocks a parody on science in the whole space program. It's funny.
Yeah, he's not being fooled by the new technology. He's ready to just show how stupid it is. And there's even more to this appropriate metaphor or appropriate strategy. Okay, so I guess I haven't got to it yet. There's a statement by Johnny which is interesting. Now, on the moon, there's a problem. The moon is already occupied by Celestia. And Celestia is this, how is she described? This woman.
Spider woman?
No, not the Spider Woman. Celestia, a queen from the moon with green skin. Now, green is my color on the chart. A queen on the time note chart. A queen from the moon. So this is an odd mutation. Now, she's scheming to take over Earth. But she's surprised when these humans end up on her planet. She doesn't know where they came from.
That was the same thing with the giant last payday. Last hour.
The giant spider and the woman.
What was her name?
That's Drachma.
Yeah.
Queen of Cosmic Greed. Now, that's going to be Hudson Tooth. That's the same story 10 years later, 8 years later. And I'm going to explain why it's the same story. So Celestia says she encounters Billy, I guess. Who's he talking to? She's talking. Wait a minute. Yeah, Cecil has they've landed, successful landing, and now she confronts these humans. So she tells them, "We are the last tragic remnants of a perishing race, a love-starved race, more highly developed than your Earth women in the mysterious feminine arts, and we have waited many time periods." Note that phrase, many time periods, not a lot of time, but time spans. We have waited many time periods for a contact such as this. It seems as though our prayers have been answered. Come with us. We have prepared a feast. And Cecil goes, feast? Like eating? And we move through some other scenes with Senator Gurney and Johnny. And then, here's where Johnny says, he's remembering as a youth, he loved the DJ named Howling Hogman. So that's a takeoff on Wolfman Jack, who used to broadcast out of Mexico, that Zappa would listen to in the 50s, I guess, early 60s. So Johnny remembers he loved this DJ called the Howling Hogman. That's what they used to call him. And he had a funny old voice, let me tell you. Good mercy. I used to sit there and laugh till I was blue in the face. Yuck, yuck, yuck. So he's a really corny guy. Now here's Frank. In the sound column, he writes electronic rock and roll, not electric rock and roll, not just rock and roll. He says electronic rock and roll. This is 1964. What's electronic rock and roll in 1964? So, okay, carrying on. So, Celestia falls in love with Billy. and she wants to fuck him, and she's trying to organize an orgy because she's got a bunch of other women hanging around her team. And she wants Larry and Cecil to fuck the other women, and she wants to fuck Billy. Because, as she said, she's love-starved. They haven't fucked anybody in years, stuck there on the moon, because their race got wiped out. But I'm missing the here it is. So here's an interesting statement by Johnny. He says, I suppose that each and every one of us as Americans has had or has right now or will have at some time or another a favorite disc jockey. That's just said right out of the blue. What's that about? The guy is, has he landed yet?
But
yeah,
it's true
he hasn't landed.
now
Get ready.
Kids doesn't want to be rock stars anymore. Nowadays, everybody wants to be a DJ, not a musician.
Yes, a DJ
playing
or a Bill Gates. They want to come up with an app and start a computer empire.
Yes.
But yes, they want to be a DJ. Even I became a DJ. Look at me, always adapting to the fads. You could look at my life. And Bob was a trendmonger all along. I mean, I did it without knowing I was doing it, but I ended up being a great DJ, and I didn't know that's what everybody wanted to be. I'm causing everybody wanting to be a DJ. That's what's going on.
Yeah, there you go.
I got there
the
first.
Evolution. Zappa had to be a rock star, and you had to become a DJ.
Yeah,
that was the next step.
I had to sample Frank. He's my content. Sample him and everybody else.
Remix him for your xenocracy.
Right. That's right. So Johnny says, for some reason, I suppose that each and every one of us as Americans has had or has right now or will have at some time or another a favorite disc jockey. That's Frank pointing out the programmed environment, right? Which sound like an obvious thing to an engineer. What do you mean? Everybody knows that. But you have to look at the obvious and look at the figure ground meaning of it. It'll have relevance later. So that's why he says the old Howling Hog Man was my favorite, and still is for that matter. And I'll probably never outgrow my love for him and the music he plays. Back in the late 50s, Frank talks about how it was a serious statement among intellectuals that rock and roll was a fad. And Frank realized early on that it wasn't a fucking fad. It was a new environment, and it's not going to go away. So he refers to that when he says he has this Johnny guy as a big insight. I'll probably never outgrow my love for him and the music the DJ plays. That leads to the nostalgia industry. You know, these companies that recycle all the old bands from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. You know, it's an important part of the person's being. It's like keeping a person alive. They have to see.
Today I read there's going to be a 1-year-long festival in London because of the 40th anniversary of punk. 1 year long.
Right, and that's
Really?
because it's an important part of their biology. It has to be done. You know, because it's part of people's, it's like, we're going to keep breathing. We must keep breathing. We like it here, and we're going to keep breathing. Well, you got to have, you know, we've had punk, and we must keep it going. We can't stop it. The wars happen when somebody wipes out a whole technical setup and then erases people's memories, and then they bring in a new technology, a new civilization, which the Evergreen said will be the final Armageddon, when we invent a technology that we know, when we implement it and press the button and it goes into action, we will forget everything we ever knew.
Yes.
And that will be the price you pay for this new technology. And the war will be whether to do that or not. I don't want to forget everything. No, don't press that button. The other idiots, the drunks and cocaine freaks will say, fuck it, I don't care. I had a lousy life. I don't want to remember it. Press that fucking button. All right? So there's a spiritual battle right there.
What'd
you say, Roxy?
Yeah,
the capsaicon. Yeah.
It's still
okay.
They can still sell some safety pins. So yeah, there's still a market there. So.
Who did that? Who paid off the London mayor and the government to allow something to go on for a year? You know, and maybe Prince Charles. Probably Prince Charles did it. The least likely guy. So poor Johnny recognizes that he'll never outgrow his love for rock and roll, or that DJ. So then Johnny a little later says, music expresses the heart and soul. So here's Frank talking about the environment. Music expresses the heart and soul of mankind, whether he be exalted or humble or rich or poor. Then he says, and my life has been lived clean with a lot of music in it. And Frank would say, well, you never heard any music. That's just new life. That's just Muzak or ugly radio, whatever Frank would say. Because Frank said nobody knew what music was, and even if it bit him on the ass. He says that in Time magazine in October '69. So here he's pointing out that a person is now saying, yes, my chemical body has been lived cleanly, but I've got my electronic self, and that's expressed as my body has a lot of music in it. So it's just an odd statement, in the middle of this corny drama of the space race. Frank is putting these statements in there. At one point when...
He says, I got my electronic self?
Self, did you say? Self?
Yeah, what did you say?
I said, he said, my life has been lived clean and with a lot of music in it. In other words, he's talking about his listening experience. He's a consumer like all Americans in the 60s of pop radio. But why would a guy be written? I don't know any other character has ever said that. Yeah, I've had a pretty good life, and I've had a lot of music in it. You ever said that about yourself? Well, you have. You're a composer. But Bert never said that about himself.
No.
It's like...
It is odd in the middle.
What?
It is odd to put that in the middle of this
yeah.
You
have a lot of music in your life. It's an invisible environment. You take it as a cliche. It's a given. You don't make a point. You don't observe it. You don't make a statement about it. It's part of the cliche environment. So you see my point, right? That's sort of odd. This Johnny Apple, this all-American cornhead, corn-grown, Midwest corny guy, corn-fed. He's saying, my life has been lived clean with a lot of music in it. Yeah, I mean, is that what Donald Trump's going to say when he accepts the presidential mantle, when he wins the election? He's going to say, yeah, it's been a great life. I had a lot of music in it, a lot of TV, a lot of video, which is a way of saying you still think your chemical body is the focus of your being. What Johnny's really saying is that my physical body's been clean, and I have many other bodies made up of musical consumption. He's pointing to a multiple-bodied experience, but said rearview mirror as if it's just the chemical body. So at one point when the guys when Johnny Smith lands on the moon, he lands after Cecil. It says rocket screaming in, the sound, rocket screaming in. That is the opening line in Gravity's Rainbow by Pynchon. A screaming comes heard across the sky. It's a very poetic statement. So here's Frank. And Frank's a manipulator. There's like a similarity between Pynchon and Frank. They're both born around the same time, and they're both sort of dealing with 50s America and then promoting some release from it. And they're both looking very interested in the history of the Nazis and what happened to the Nazis. If you look on the album cover for the Grand Wazoo, it shows whatever the guy's name, Uncle Meat, the evil scientist. It shows his laboratory, and it has the book Arms of Krupp. It's got a bunch of books, and one of them is the history of the German armaments industry, the Krupp family. So, and someone else, Barry Miles or somebody, noticed that Frank was reading the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich or something. He had a fascination for that period. But while he's saying in his early albums, the Nazis are running your town, he almost predicted what May would find out. May Brussels, literal Nazis. So moving along, we're getting close to the end. You're enjoying this, right? Going through these patterns. They say somebody uses the word bacino. So Billy says, "What's this Bacino?" She said Bacino, and she says, Celestia, the Moon Queen, says, "I guess they monitor your late-night TV shows." That's a line from an old Zsa Zsa Gabor movie called Queen of Outer Space. So there's a media clip that is brought in, a phrase from a TV show that's brought up uttered on the moon. It's actually, oh yeah. So while Celestia's trying to seduce Billy, all of a sudden they're shocked because the Grunt people show up. Yeah, remember this is called Captain Beefheart versus the Grunt people, and they're some kind of alien race. So the Grunt people take over and basically arrest everybody. And they go, "With us you will come, cave-wise, our hideout to go, on the dark side of the moon." It says moon dark side. "Ha, Bacino." And then Billy says, what's this Bacino? Because the second Grunt uses the phrase. So Celestia says, "I guess the Grunts monitor your late-night TV shows." That's a line from the old Zsa Zsa Gabor movie, Queen of Outer Space. So a little bit of mixed media thrown into the scenario. Beefheart is back home, and he's listening. His mother and father are watching roller derby, entertaining some TV content. And Beefheart gets pissed off at them that they're when they start watching. A little later, they start watching the moon landing, and he says, "What are you fucking doing? We've got something happening here on the moon." Now Beefheart, through his watch-all, can see that something's weird's going on the moon. So he's trying to get Sue and his father to listen, but they won't. They're too busy watching first roller derby and then the moon landing. No, sorry, not the moon landing. That's 5 years later in the second script. So they're watching roller derby. Now, another thing about Beefheart, he used to have these rashes. And if they got really bad, he'd have to go hang out at some relative's house and lay low so that nobody saw him. So Frank refers to that. Says Beefheart, "We see him digging away at an imaginary nerve rash under his skin." Imaginary nerve rash. His eyes are rolling back slightly. He is muttering unintelligible things about a bread man. And the bread man was his father. His father was a bread man. So there's a little exposure of Beefheart's actual life, or Don Fleet's life, with his rashes. Then it says, the king of the Grunts, he has a torture room. And the king squats on a throne raised above the level of the others. The room is dark and dismal. The stone walls ooze green slime, which glistens in the eerie illumination. Dense putrid vapors rise from orifices in the floor, hazing the scene. So in the 70s, there's a song called "The Torture Never Stops," and this evil prince is torturing people and other things in the basement, and I think it has green slime walls. So the torture chamber is a key motif that starts off in 1964. And it's a putrid environment. That's how the evil prince is doing it in Virginia many years later in the later song. Okay, so we're almost finished here. Billy says, he says, "Shucks, here I thought all the time that you and your little buddies lived up here." Well, you live and learn. This phrase, "you and your little buddies," you hear Frank use that in another song or two. When he's mocking fads, he says, "you and your little buddies." So it's already got it here in the script. And this is a year before the Mothers of Invention are formed. So Johnny, he's now forced to deal with Billy. He meets Billy and Cecil and Larry. He says, "Wow, I'll be ... Never in my wildest imaginings could I have foreseen anything of this magnitude. Here I am, back to back with a being from another world." He thinks Billy and Johnny have been captured by the king of the Grunts, and they're tied up together back to back. And Johnny thinks Billy's an alien. "Here I am, back to back with a being from another world. I mean, people up here on the moon I could have figured. I had my suspicions about this place for a long time. But as far as the other, more distant worlds was concerned, well, I just never would have believed it. Say, maybe we can work a deal. You got the spaceship and I got the brains. Maybe together the both of us could escape. You ever hear of a place called Earth? Billy, marveling at Johnny's stupidity. Of course, you idiot. Can't you see that's where I'm from? Johnny says, you from there too? Hot dog. Now we're talking the same language. It's a good thing you didn't turn out to be one of them extraterrestrial beings. And Billy goes, is that so? Or is that so? No, it's a question. Is that so? So maybe Billy is extraterrestrial. I mean, he managed to take a cardboard fucking vehicle to the moon with a special fucking liquid. So he may be, maybe Francesco Zappa is not from here. Francesco Zappa has not just been around for hundreds of years. He's a being from another world. So moving along here. So finally, of course, in the course of encountering Celestia, there's a big spider. So they have to deal with this big spider, and it lives in a cave. There's this cave motif. Frank's always describing a cave in these screenplays, and when he was interviewing the Rolling Stone in '68, he had himself photographed in front of looked like a cave, and it was probably the secret tunnel to Harry Houdini's house from the log cabin. But I'm not sure, but he definitely had Frank presenting himself as a caveman. The cage, okay. So the first grunt, the king opens the cage, which the first grunt didn't know about, and the king says, the cage with the giant spider in it, of course. And then he tells him to push this button, and there's an electrical crackle. And it gives this electrical crackle gives the giant spider a little electrical shock and makes him mad. Remember, it's usually best to starve the spider for a couple of weeks before using him on Earth people. So the king of grunts wants the spider to eat Johnny, Billy, Cecil, and Larry. But Celestia doesn't want that to happen. So we're moving along, coming close to the end of the script. Another case where Don, Captain Beefheart, he walks along, he looks back over his shoulder occasionally at Sue, his mother. He's also scratching the nerve rash under his neck. The swan, and then Sue comes along and meets the spider, who is crawling on, ready to eat whoever it encounters. So she managed to take a swatter and hits the spider in the eye. And it says the eye, in reality a chicken egg injected with food coloring. The eye is crushed, releasing a quantity of multicolored goo. Now, the spider is identified with the eye. Center margin structures that came in with the printing press. What was it? In box image of the universe, of the solar system, you had the sun, and then that's the center, and then the planets are going around it like they're the margins. So a center margin structure, a visual hierarchy comes in with the eye, and the spider, McLuhan has a picture of the spider in War and Peace and Gold Village as a cartoon image of the Kaiser, either World War I or World War II. This spider is reaching out over Europe. So the spider is a traditional image for visual space. Are you there? Are people getting this? Okay. Yes. So Frank seems to be aware of that. The eye is where you nail if you kick out the eye, then the spider is diminished. So Beefheart's mother smashes the spider's eye, and all is fine. So the Larry and Cecil are not sort of noticed, and they come along, and they eventually beat up and kill the king of the grunts. So everybody is looking good. The Celestia is happy because Billy's paying attention to her. No, actually, when she thought Billy was dead, she jumped on Cecil. So she's hanging out with Cecil, and she's saying, well, maybe, she says, they've taken Billy away and killed him, my beloved one. He's gone forever. He was so kind, so tender, so mature. Cecil says, well, maybe he's not dead yet. Maybe he's only hurt a little bit and bleeding. Celestia says, he must be. He must be dead. No man could survive the terrible grunt tortures. He's gone forever. But she stops crying and abruptly lunges on Cecil. But I have you to love me for eternity, the two of us, repopulating the moon. Come with me, you beautiful earthling. Let's all return to the subterranean gardens and consummate our love feast. So in the celebration of that Billy and Johnny, they can get back to the Earth, and Celestia's still alive. The Grunt people are dead. She inaugurates an orgy. So it says, Beefheart, whenever he induces himself, I didn't read this, I think I read it last week. I'm Captain Beefheart, and this is my loyal assistant, Sue. I'm magic, and I can make myself invisible and fly through time and space, another dimension, and that's how I got here. So, Beefheart, he goes up to the moon and helps out. Well, that's led to Sue being the person who knocks out the spider's eye. So basically you got Billy, Cecil, and Larry land on the moon, meet Celestia, and then Johnny shows up. Then they have to deal with the Grunt people, have a battle with them, and they win, and then they go and have an orgy. But let's see. Beefheart offers to take a couple of people back with his interdimensional travel. Beefheart says, our work here is done now, and we must be off to my secret mountain retreat to watch over good people everywhere and keep them safe from danger and harm and the forces of evil. And so in parting, may I say this, it's been a real pleasure to save you two fellows, and I know everything is going to work out fine for both of you. And so long for now, fellows, and God bless you. And he dematerializes. Well, Billy and Johnny go join the orgy, and there's one last little interruption. Somebody, is it the king? The king of the Grunts? Somebody, but Billy and Johnny are still in trouble, but Johnny pulls out a concealed .45 and he refers to a little reference manual, and he thumbs through the book and reads aloud, simultaneously shooting everything in the room. And Johnny says, it says here in the book, halt or I'll fire. Who goes there? Present arms. I now declare this bridge open. So he's reading some manual for a public ceremony to guide him in shooting whatever's left over in the executioner's room. So Billy and Johnny are, Larry and Cecil have gone off to the orgy, but now, a little later, Billy and Johnny get free. So it says, Johnny closes the book, blows the smoke away from his pistol, puts his arm around Billy, and leads him off screen. We hold for a dissolve on a nearby Grunt. Johnny says, come on, old-timer, this sort of thing always tends to upset me. So as the credits are going up, you dissolve to the subterranean gardens. That's the place where Celestia has her orgy. So there's full-blood orgies happening. And it says, the love feast is in full swing. We pan the scene, picking out interesting techniques here and there. We hold on Celestia kissing Cecil's ear as a strange figure passes in front of the camera. We pull back slightly and bring it into focus. It's Captain Beefheart. We zoom in as he winks, and Beefheart beckoning to the audience. Come on, kids. What are you waiting for? So there it is in 1964 in clean America. Zappa in his movie is inviting the young kids in school to join an orgy. Now, that's pretty radical. That's pretty underground at that point, wouldn't you say? Are you guys muted? I have to wait a second? Or did you lose your bearings? Where are you guys? Oh, yeah. You're blocked, right?
Hello.
Bert?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I dropped out a long time ago.
But did you have anything to say? Yes, I'm here. Did you have anything to say?
Well, I don't remember anymore, but it's quite funny because today when we were making the video, we were making a video. We saw this Captain Beefheart thing.
What was that? What did we see?
Yeah, there was a light in front of the screen. And
This apparition. Right, this apparition appeared right there on the screen.
Captain Beefheart.
Okay. Now, I'm looking at, did Bill, no, Bert should be here. I guess he just got knocked off, and he'll get back on.